Hello everybody, welcome to our channel MediConcept. Today we will be discussing about the different functions of glucocorticoid hormones. This is the second lecture of our adrenal physiology series of lectures. In our previous video, we have discussed about the adrenocortical steroid hormone synthesis and their mechanism of action. You can find the link above and in the description box. Now coming to the functions of glucocorticoid. Almost every tissue of our body have glucocorticoid receptors. The most important glucocorticoid that is synthesized in our body is the cortisol. Cortisol, it profoundly influences the metabolism, influences the different functions of different organ system. It controls inflammation, immunity, and it also facilitates the action of other hormones. This particular function, it is known as the permissive action. Cortisol also, it mediates the response of body to the stress. Now coming to the effect of glucocorticoid or cortisol over the metabolism. Cortisol has profound effect on metabolism. Now, if you see the effect of glucocorticoid on carbohydrate metabolism, it is essential for the survival during fasting. Why? Because it increases the blood glucose by various mechanisms during the fasting state. Like, it helps in the glycogenolysis. How? By increasing the secretion of different hormones like the glucagon or epinephrine, which particularly helps in the glycogenolysis. Right? It also stimulates the neoglucogenesis, that means synthesis of new glucose molecule from non-carbohydrate source. It do that by inducing different gluconeogenic enzymes, and the most important being the glucose 6 phosphatase, right? Now we all know that insulin, it inhibits the neoglucogenesis process, but cortisol, it also inhibits that insulin mediated inhibition, right? Also, cortisol helps in the proteolysis, so it mobilizes the amino acids for the new glucogenesis. So by all of these factors, cortisol increases the hepatic glucose output, right? Now glucose normally enters into the cell through specific glucose transporter, right? Cortisol also prevents the mobilization of this glucose transporter from the cytosol to cell membrane, right? So less glucose transporter will be available at the cell membrane and less glucose can enter inside the cell, right? And lastly, it also decreases the utilization of the glucose by antagonizing the action of the insulin over the peripheral tissue. So less glucose will enter inside the peripheral tissue and less glucose will be utilized by the cells. So the overall effect will be increase in the plasma glucose level, right? Cortisol, it also facilitates the proteolysis, especially in skeletal muscle. The released amino acid can be taken up by the liver for new glucose and protein synthesis. Cortisol also decreases the new protein synthesis in muscle, bone, skin, connective tissue. The lipolytic effect of epinephrine and the growth hormone, it requires the cortisol, and thus it generates excess of free fatty acid and the glycerol. This free fatty acid can be used by the cell as alternative fuel source by the beta oxidation pathway. The glycerol can be taken up by the liver and it will be utilized for the new glucose synthesis. But you have to remember that cortisol mobilizes the fat in such a way that excess of it causes maldistribution of fat in the body, that results in deposition of the excess fat at the upper part of the body, right? And that leads to truncal obesity, moon face and the buffalo hump due to this peculiar distribution of fat, right? Now cortisol also promote proteolysis and causes decreased protein synthesis in the peripheral tissue, but usually they spare the important cellular protein and the structural protein by only using the labile cellular protein. These amino acids can be used by the liver for new protein synthesis. So in a nutshell, if you make a gist over the glucose metabolism, cortisol, it increases the neoglucogenesis, it increases the glycogenolysis, so it causes increase in the glucose production. And at the peripheral tissue, it decreases the glucose entry and also it causes decrease in glucose utilization. So the net effect will be increase in the blood glucose level. That is why in glucocorticoid excess or the cortisol excess, there will be increase in the blood glucose level. This particular condition, it is known as the adrenal diabetes. Now over the protein metabolism, we have already seen that it increases the protein catabolism, it decreases the protein synthesis, but in the liver actually it increases the protein synthesis, and that will be reflected as the increase in the plasma protein level at the circulation, right? Over the lipids, it increases the lipolysis, and this is because of the permissive action over the epinephrine and growth hormone. It also causes decrease in the fatty acid synthesis by antagonizing the insulin action. Cortisol, it increases also food intake by increasing the secretion of neuropeptide Y, and excess of this cortisol leads to maldistribution of fat at the upper part of the body, that leads to truncal obesity, moon face and the buffalo hump. Now the second important function of the cortisol is, or the glucocorticoid, these are very potent anti-inflammatory agent, right? So whenever the tissues are damaged by trauma or infection with bacteria, viruses or in other ways, there is almost always inflammation. Now how this inflammation is mediated? If you look at the stages of inflammation, they have mainly 5 stages. So in the first stage, there will be release of different chemicals like histamine, bradykinin, proteolytic enzymes, prostaglandins, leukotrienes from the damaged tissue cells. In the second stage, these different chemical mediators will cause vasodilation and lead to increase in the blood flow to the affected area. This leads to cardinal signs of the inflammation, like local increase in the temperature or the heat production, which is also known as the color, and the redness at the site due to increased blood flow, which is also known as the rubor. In the next stage, large quantities of fluid or plasma will leak out of the capillaries due to increased permeability, which leads to swelling of the local area. This is also known as the tumor. Subsequently, different released chemoattractant will cause infiltration of the leukocyte to the affected area, and they will release different chemical mediators that may produce pain or the tenderness. This sign is also known as the dolor. In severe cases, it may also lead to the loss of function of the affected site or the organ. Released chemical mediators may cause fever and other systemic manifestation, and in the latter stages there will be growth of the fiber tissues and which seals the affected area from the surrounding healthy zone. So these are the 5 main stages of the inflammation. Now, how the glucocorticoid acts as a potent anti-inflammatory agent? Cortisol, it inhibits the synthesis of different chemical mediators of inflammation. It stimulates the synthesis of lipoproteins in the target cells, and thereby it inhibits the phospholipase A2. Because of this inhibition, release of arachidonic acid is decreased, and which is the precursor of different inflammatory mediators like the prostaglandins and the leukotrienes. Cortisol also stabilizes the lysosomal membrane and thereby decreases the release of proteolytic enzymes and prevent the proteolytic damage and the inflammatory injury. Cortisol also, it inhibits the mast cells. It prevents the differentiation and proliferation of mast cell, which is the potent source of histamine. So decreased histamine release leads to decreased vasodilation and decreased capillary permeability. So this leads to decreased blood flow and leakage at the affected site. Cortisol also inhibits the leukocyte function. It prevents the chemotaxis and also it inhibits the phagocytic and the bactericidal activity of the neutrophil, right? So it also inhibits the leukocyte function. Nuclear factor kappa B plays an important role in the inflammation. Normally, this NFKB, it is bound to another cytoplasmic protein which is called as inhibitor of kappa B alpha, IKBA, and keeps it in inactive state. Cortisol, it increases the production of this IKBA. IKBA, it is the inhibitor of kappa B alpha, so that the nuclear factor kappa B, that is NFKB, it remains attached to it and prevents its activation, right? And as this NFKB, it is important for the inflammation, it causes the inhibition of the gene transcription and the new protein synthesis. These proteins are important for the inflammation, right? Cortisol also inhibits the proliferation of the fibroblast, and thus it decreases the synthesis and deposition of fibrils at the site of inflammation. So by this way, the cortisol, it acts as a potent anti-inflammatory agent. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we will be discussing about the other functions of the cortisol. Thank you.